Okay.
Matilda, don't worry.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just talking
okay,
to Alex.
everybody.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, fantastic. All right, fantastic. So, again, my name's Tim Mantis. I'll be your host for this evening, this evening's webinar. I'm over on the West Coast, the left coast, so bear with me. I know you guys are, it's about, looks like about 10 after 7 your time. So this is interactive. We're going to be talking about some components of management. Now, I work at this company here, Survival Strategies, up here in the left-hand corner. Anybody ever hear of that? Anybody that's on the audio portion? Alex, I know you and I have talked about it a little bit. Carol, do you know anything about it?
I have not.
Okay, Kathy, have you ever heard of it? Kathy, you there?
Yes, I have not.
Okay, okay, fantastic. So we're a training and consulting company. The accent's on training, and we work with owners in private practice. Could be pediatric therapy, it could be outpatient adult therapy, it could be entrepreneurial teletherapy, it could be a lot of different things. But the guideline is it's owner operated. So in other words, I don't work with corporations, I don't work with big business or the suits or that sort of thing. This is individual therapists that run their own shows. I don't work with physician-owned practices. And our purpose is to help private practice remain independent and private. And we do that through a number of different ways. And specifically, we'll talk about some of those tonight. But I've been working at this company for the last 23 years. We've been doing this for the last 33 years. So you feel free to look us up online and kick the tires. We have a ton of information on the website and so on and so forth. But all we work with is therapy. So these, we'll get into some specific issues. We'll look at some general terms, and that's okay too. So without further ado, the folks that are open and unmuted, I'll be asking you some questions as we kind of walk through this. So when we look at the keys to all of this, we try to narrow it down to a couple different issues, and primarily 3. So we put everything that we could possibly encounter under 3 different keys. And the first one, cash flow, is anything to do with money, anything to do with financing, and that starts from, do you have a budget? What are your expenses? What does it cost you, or what will it cost you if you're looking at potentially going into private practice? What are your rates? What are you negotiating with different private carriers? Do you have cash-based programs? How are you paying your staff? How did you end up negotiating salaries, whether you have contractors or employees or whatever the case may be? What are your accounts payable? What are your accounts receivable? The money coming in, the money going out. Do you have a plan to follow so that you will accrue and accumulate more wealth, more revenue than you spend? The essence of viability for any organization is having more than you spend. Organization, the second key, and this specifically is the umbrella under which everything falls. So when we talk about management, we're talking about organization. We're talking about having a plan, having some idea of what we want this to look like, the policies, the procedures, the sequence of activities that occur so that we can get patients in, get them treated, get them out, make sure that our good services and products are well known, well thought of, having good public relations, good area control. So around your specific area of influence, how many miles do you see patients coming in from? Could we influence that to the degree that we are the provider of choice? We're known, we're well known, we're well thought of, both in the medical community, in the community that we serve, with kiddos, if it's a pediatric situation, or with adult patients. Organization, hiring, best practices, scheduling. What are we doing in terms of trying to get people's commitments to take care of their portion of whatever is due? Whether that's co-pays, whether that's deductibles, et cetera, et cetera. Dealing with cancels and no-shows, having people that are good quality staff that are then onboarded. How is there a sequence? What can we do to help people sort of buy into our vision, whatever that is? We have to have that articulated, and we have to have some plan, some actual plan. So everything else, the structure of the organization, everything that falls underneath the umbrella of management and organization. And the last piece there is promotion. I mentioned making good works well known and well thought of. That's public relations. In other words, if we go, look, our parents love us, our patients love us, staff loves the doctors, the physicians, whoever's referring to us, that's going great. How many people outside of that realm of influence know about us? I was talking to somebody right before I started the webinar, and she said, we have a couple different things. In her case, she has a whole daycare center, and she has a whole therapy, PTOT speech, pediatric practice. She said, but when people hear our name, they think only of the daycare. And I said, well, that's a problem in public relations. We don't have enough of an audience. People do not know. We're not widely known. So you could look at this as an example. How many people are driving by your doors every day and have no idea you're there? So that's indicative of public relations. Marketing is also part of promotion. When we think of promotion, we usually think of traditional things like advertising. That could be Google ads, Facebook ads, social media. All that stuff falls under this category. And also public speaking. That could be a great way to influence people and opinions. And then we may have to market after that. But public relations usually makes it safe to market to that particular area. And there's a lot of different steps there. We're still in the people business. So I know people, maybe want to take the easier path of not having to go out of the clinic and market one-on-one, but I'm here to tell you that's very effective, and we can definitely influence referrals to the point that it makes sense. In other words, it's worth the time and effort, even the pain connected with going out and seeing people. So let me just get a little input here, and I know we just have a few of the guys online. Carol, what kind of practitioner are you?
I'm an occupational therapist.
Great. And do you have a private practice?
I do.
Okay, fantastic.
So, yes. Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
No, I didn't want to cut you off. You said you also.
So I'm the executive director of a therapeutic writing center. So I specialize so I went back to school to become an occupational therapist to be able to offer hippotherapy as a treatment strategy for several of our clients.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Okay, great. And let's see. Kathy, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, Kathy. What's your specialty? What kind of practice?
Oh, I'm a teacher.
You're what?
I'm a teacher.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good. And are you involved with private practice, or what do you do?
Actually, I'm Alex's partner in this company.
Oh, fantastic. I did not know that.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. And Alex, what do you do?
I'm an occupational therapist. I work both for a school board and home health. And myself, Kathy, and several other therapists, we started a company to address helping marketing private services, and we're looking for private paid clients and so forth. And the company's called Ask, Learn. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, great. And so the information that I'm going to cover with you comes from this book that we wrote. Oh gosh, I don't know, maybe 2008. It's called The Keys to Private Practice Success. And there you see the different keys that are listed. And it's not light reading. It's kind of like a physician's desk reference. It has a lot of case histories from 15, 16 different practices. And here's a tool that they learned from us. And then this is what their before and after was subjectively. And then we use some statistics as well. So you can take a look at that. It's on Amazon. It's on our website at Survival Strategies and that sort of thing. Now, when we do these webinars, I always try to get somewhat of an agreement so that people participate. And with our GoToWebinar this evening, I know that it's a little bit challenging because there's only a couple of you guys available. So Kathy, I might mute you and see if I can unmute somebody else. But Carol, if it's okay, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions while we go through this so that we can see if any of this applies or not. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So I want to start by looking at what is your ideal scene. Now, you told me you're in private practice and you do hippotherapy. Is that all under one umbrella? Is that under one clinic, or how does that work?
So currently, so I've been an occupational therapist now for about 6 months. So I would be just starting just starting my private practice. However, I have been thank you, the executive director and founder of the nonprofit for the last 15 years. So
fantastic.
I have the nonprofit Therapeutic Writing Center. Currently, I provide services out of, that was part of the deal, is I have a small office that I work out of at the Writing Center, but I'm also looking at, once I have a big enough client base, to look at having a clinic in town as well, to be able to do some of my stuff in town, and not all of it would be at the Writing Center.
Okay, good. I got it. So, but you do have access there. You can talk to some of the kiddos, the parents, and treat some patients. Are you already treating patients there in the office?
I am, yes.
Good, fantastic. So, ideal scene. So this is a bit of your vision, and you can say, well, within the first year, I would like to be doing X amount. But tell me a little bit about, in the next year, what would you like to accomplish? What would be your ideal scene?
So by the end of 2019, I would like to have at least one COTA hired on.
Okay.
And I would like to be seeing an average of, and my situation is, I need to be seeing at least 20 clients a week in order to justify looking for another clinic besides just at the arena.
Okay, good. And
you want me to hit revenue as well? And so,
anything here that you feel like, okay, good, I feel comfortable sharing this, that's fine.
Yeah, I figure that I have to have at least 20 visits in order to justify hiring on a staff beyond me and looking at expanding with the intention that now that I'm an occupational therapist, I also then have to make sure that the nonprofit is in a place to hire a new executive director at some point in time, because you can only wear so many hats for so long.
Absolutely. Okay, good. And what about the creation of a consistent flow of referrals? How do you see that evolving, or,
So a lot of what we do right now is, or what I've been doing, is building relationships with various doctors in town, even just for the Writing Center, to get those referrals for people to come out. So then it's a matter of whether they are appropriate for an actual therapy session or if they are more appropriate for adaptive writing.
Okay.
So I do a lot of one-on-one talking to different doctors, physicians, other therapists, other providers within town, so that they know who we are and what I do.
Good, fantastic. So, and again, this is kind of a wish list. So it's you taking a look at, let's look at the different aspects of what might be involved, not just, where you are now and in the office, but in the eventuality of opening up the clinic in town and going, okay, good. Now I'm going to have some different sources. Who would be the best potential referral sources that you would want to have a good relationship with, or create a consistent flow? Some people might go, I'm only going to do that through social media. Some people might go, I'm going to do that through case managers. It's a mixed bag. But for you, what would you ideally like to see so that you're invaluable and people are coming to you in droves?
So one of the things that I look at specializing in, so my use of hippotherapy is not the traditional use. So I don't look at it more from the biomechanical ideal, a lot with the mental health aspect. So getting people, to understand what the mental health aspect of occupational therapy is, but then also being that transition piece from our acute care facilities that we have in town to then no support, and being, so getting them to where they would refer people to me once they're discharged from the acute setting, that then they can participate in the community-based or the outpatient clinic to help them continue to be then more functional and have better long-term stability.
Okay, good. And Alex, I'll use you also as a little bit of a guinea pig. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So in the development of what you do, what would you say is your ideal scene? And it can be short-term or long-term. What are you trying to create? What would be your wish list, your perfect picture?
My perfect scenario is private pay patients, not having to do as many notes or documentation, and having the autonomy to create a therapy practice that's fulfilling for me rather than dictated by CPT codes.
Good. Treat by need, not reimbursement. Good. Okay, fantastic. And how much volume would you like to see?
With respect to volume, so my ideal is to help other clinicians develop their practices, and so my idea basically is to have multiple revenue streams, so assisting other clinicians to basically replicate what we do and to set up them with our partners, and at the same time to develop partners outside the medical system for reimbursement as well. So a non-traditional reimbursement model.
Okay, good. So in either case, when we talk about ideal scene, if you compare it to the treatment of a patient, and you look at, well, this is, and you realize I'm not a therapist, so I'm a total lay person here. But when we look at, well, this is what we think function should be, or this is the ideal amount of participation or social skills or whatever it happens to be, and I go, for that individual, whatever I'm trying to aspire to, I go, I can see where that's deficient because I'm comparing it to something that is maybe a model. Very much like I talked to somebody yesterday, and he's a husband of a clinic owner, and they work together. And he's also a plumber. And I said, "Oh, plumbing." I said, "I remember in high school, I was working with some plumbers, and we knew how to fix plumbing because we knew what it looked like when it worked perfectly. And any deviation from that was not the ideal scene." And they would always laugh, and they would be like, "You have to see what the system should look like when it's working properly, and then you can fix it in a more efficient way." And that's part of this concept. So it's relatively simple. Now, if we look at some of the ingredients, we go, for a lot of people that I talk to, quality care is job one. And we totally agree and acknowledge that. We go, okay, fine. What about referrals? Like, we have to have consistent referrals, new patients coming in. For a lot of owners, entrepreneurs, folks that have their existing clinics, maybe they have a waiting list practice. They have more people wanting to see them than they can currently service. That, to me, it's a great problem to have, but it's also, it now moves into the next issue, which is number 3, management. I got to be able to satisfy that need. If I have a big waiting list, we know some people are not going to stay on that waiting list. Some people will find another practitioner. Some people will maybe get better, or the pain will subside if they're a physical therapy problem or what have you. They may end up not going to therapy, or they may just find other means. Effective reimbursements. A lot of people, if you're dealing with insurance, and, you know, Alex, you mentioned, I'd like to opt out of that. I'd like to deal with cash-based services, or services that I don't have to submit to someone else who probably has no background in anything medical, and be denied or be, you know, approved for reimbursement. So we have to have a system. We have to have something that makes sense so that we can collect all possible monies that are owed to us quickly. And is there a way to do that legally, ethically? Financial planning and control. This is not what to invest your money in outside of the clinic. This is not investments. No, this is for every dollar that comes into the practice, how are we allocating that? What percentage goes to what aspect? For some people, they feel like marketing and management, that's kind of a luxury. We don't really have money or time for that sort of thing. And I go, okay. But yet, if we have if we have consistency in all these different issues, we're probably going to be better off. So that's financial planning. Controlling expenses. Everybody wants to be frugal. I totally appreciate that. I love to get a deal. You know, I can get it 50 cents less over here than over there. But that's not going to be the biggest part of financial planning. The first order of financial planning is going to be income planning. How do we generate revenue? Next, public relations. Public relations and marketing, I spoke to that a little bit earlier. Effective hiring and staff retention. I don't just want to hire somebody. I want to be able to keep them. Good people are hard to find. We know that. Maybe there's more challenges now than ever before. I don't know, but I hear a lot of feedback about that kind of issue. And I go, we got to have the tools to be a good headhunter. I got to be professional. I'm the director of personnel. I'm out there. I'm being tasked with staffing my group, hiring good people, and then onboarding and adding value to that so that I retain my staff. This is not just a question of money. A lot of people have had issues with that, where they feel like, gosh, I can't compete with the people down the road that are paying people top dollar. And I go, I understand. That's not the only thing that you bring to the table. And trust me, that's not the only thing that motivates people. Quality control, no question about it. And that's quality control of everything of what we're doing. Our front desk, our hiring efforts, our marketing efforts, our treatment planning, everything, clinical, non-clinical, that's all quality control. In-house training. It's an important part of continuing education, is what are we doing internally to help people continue to be a valuable member of the team that we're creating here. Owner power of choice. That's you're the determining factor here. If you're the person that has started this operation or bought it or inherited it or whatever the case may be, we go, all right, you are bound to do certain things as an owner. Some of those things you may not like to do. Your power of choice is being inhibited at that point. So we want to be able to isolate how can we move forward in the way that we want to move forward. And one reason why we want to establish the ideal scene is this is your baby. This is your operation. What do you see? If you have a great purpose in terms of what do I provide for the patients that I serve, what do I provide for my therapists, the community, any of the physicians or other referral sources, what am I bringing to the table? How can I be invaluable to them? It gives me more latitude, more power of choice. And anything I do, if it's under my own determinism, I will feel better about it. I'll get more done. So we know we have to do things that maybe we don't always like to, but if I can make that into something that I can see clearly, oh, that's part of my path, I'm giving myself more availability to choose and execute effectively. Now we take the ideal scene, and for the guys that are listening, if you just jot a few items down, this is the way I'd like it to be. I'd like it to be cash-based. I'd like it to be no insurance hassles. I'd like it to be more people know about me and are beating a path to my door. And I go, okay, great. Now let's look at the actual scene. The actual scene. So what's actually happening? Where are things right now? Now, this may apply to you, it may not, but a lot of owners, physical therapists, I had this slide from an old presentation I was doing, they say don't really like having to visit referral sources. I could say this is as true to occupational therapists or speech therapists. Or they aren't so comfortable dealing with staff, dealing with some of the tough questions or tough meetings that they steer clear of. Or they're not as great at hiring staff. They feel like they're just going to be outgunned, or someone that will offer that prospective staff member more money, and they won't win out. They won't be able to hire that. But when we look at hiring, we go in a practice. We go hiring's pretty close to the idea of a sale. In other words, if you have a qualified person, you now have to bring something to the table so that it will in fact end up that staff member working with you. If you go, this is a great person, I don't want to lose out. This is what's going to help me. We know personnel are the biggest issue. It's the biggest resource that I have. It's people. It's not systems. It's not, it really is. It's very, very true. So mapping out a plan, getting agreement, participation, and success in people executing it. You guys are smart. Everybody is that I work with. They really usually one or multiple degrees, educated people working well, and yet we're looking at some pieces of the pie that they didn't necessarily study for. Their forte may be in therapy and different types of protocols and treatments, and everything else that we look at, which is a bulk of management, has to be done on a consistent basis. So if I'm counting on other people to help me get there, I may not be the best marketer, but if I can have some of my key staff help me there, I have to have a plan for them and a way to get there. It's great if I just point them in a direction and they go and they're successful. But for a lot of us, it requires more than that. For example, are you as comfortable with referral sources as you are with your patients or your public, the kiddos, adults that you're seeing? And I'll pose that question, Alex. You have potential or existing referral sources. Are you as comfortable with them as you are with your patient?
Reframe your question for me.
Well, if you looked at having to market to particular people that could drive in, clients to you, are you as comfortable talking to those people, those referral sources, as you are with your own patients?
Oh, absolutely. So I find referrals from existing patients is the best. Nothing beats that.
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth is by far the most effective. I've put it up against Google AdWords and Facebook and you name it. And boy, dollar for dollar, a good referral from a happy, client is worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. That third-party endorsement, right? Somebody else told that particular patient about you or how good you are or whatever, and they come with less, anxiety or questions or anything more, and they're usually more able and willing to participate with you as a patient. But I'm talking about a referral source, somebody else out there, like a physician, or maybe it's a case manager, or maybe it's a school teacher or a daycare. Are you as comfortable with going out and talking to those people as you are with the person you're treating right in front of you?
Let's just say I'm a lot more comfortable now than I was about 2 years ago. It was a steep learning curve.
Okay, good. Carol, what do you think?
So I'm fairly comfortable with two referral source case managers. What I'm not as good at is one to make the cold call, because I tend to sell myself short. So I don't feel, if somebody else sets up the meeting for me,
yep,
I can go talk to people all day long. I struggle with being the one to call to say, hey, I've got this really cool thing going on. I'd like to come talk to you about it.
Yep. Okay, good. So, and I totally hear what you're saying. And I can tell you something that we've observed over many years is people tend to be, in other words, if I put you on the spot and I said, okay, well, I'm a prospective referral source. You don't know me, but you did get, or somebody got an opening. You got an appointment. Do your thing. Let me do that with you. So where would a potential patient come from? Would it be from a pediatrician?
Potentially, yes.
Okay, good. Or maybe a family practice. You know, the doctor sees a little bit of everything.
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'll be that doctor. I'm Dr. Smith. You're you. You just you're in my office, and you know, in other words, you got the appointment somehow. Maybe the front desk just said, "Oh, you want to talk to the doctor? He's back there. Just go back and talk to him for a couple minutes." But you're sitting in front of me now, and make it as real as possible. So we'll just take a couple minutes. Hi, can I help you?
Hi. So I'm Carol Sestina. I'm an occupational therapist, and I'm currently working out at Reach for Star Riding Academy. And the really cool thing we do is we incorporate horses into our treatment strategy. So some of our patients who come out maybe have autism or some developmental delay, but by working on the horses, we can teach them some different skills that they then carry out into the general public act that they leave us. So if you have some time, I'd love to talk to you about more of the details of what we can do, because I think that we have some clients in common or we could have clients in common, and that we could really help facilitate some of the goals that you're working on with your clients in a way that they can then practice and carry out those skills that they're learning and working on, and we could just enhance what you are doing by coming out and working with the horses and the occupational therapy program that we've got going. So
wow, that's
I would
great.
love to set up a time that you could come out and I could give you a little tour. I could some of our classes that go on, or maybe I could even, send you a YouTube link and you could watch a couple videos.
Wow, I understand. Well, that's great. Now, I'll tell you, some of the kids that I see, I just go, they're going to grow out of this. Don't you agree?
Well, we all develop at a different rate, and so there is a chance that some kids do kind of grow out of things, but we like to give a helping hand so that as they're growing and developing and growing out of these, they have the best tools possible to be able to move forward. So by giving them a little extra help and a hand with some extra strategies that maybe they already have, we help them to develop and in after school activities, help them be more productive with their family environment, be able to maybe do some more chores, and then by the time outgrown it or they haven't, they still have the tools to be able to be successful in whatever way is meaningful to them.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, I see my nurse is kind of flagging me on there. I'm usually behind the 8 ball. I got to get going. But hey, thanks for coming by. Did you bring anything? Can you drop off a brochure or something? Prescription pen?
I do. I have a business card and a brochure, and I did bring a little promo video. I so appreciate you taking a little bit of time to talk to me. And if you have any questions, please give me a call. But I will also send you some stuff in the mail just to make sure that you've got some extra brochures in case you'd like to hand them out.
Thank you. That's super. Okay, good. That's the end of the role play. All right. So first of all, thank you for participating. I know that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do here. Let's review. Now, how'd you do? How would you say you did, Carol?
About a C.
C. Why do you say that? What makes you say that?
Hard for me to so I'm not being able to read any emotion on your face, so I don't really know how you're receiving the information. So I just kind of felt like I was rambling.
Okay.
And I mean, I would usually probably do a little bit more research on, specifically what type of clients they see, so I can have a little bit of an idea of what I want to say before I get in there.
Of course. No, I threw you in a tough spot. I acknowledge that. But do you want to know what I think?
Sure.
Okay. And I'll treat you like a client for just a couple seconds here. So you sound very articulate, very intelligent. You can communicate. That's all good, and that's a given. But I could see that you said rambling, and I could see, okay, yeah, she was kind of going on and on. Now, who was controlling that conversation?
You just weren't given where I was going, which is where my rambling went on. So, or I feel like you were. I was talking a lot, but I felt like you had control of the conversation.
You're right. And who was doing most of the talking?
I was.
Okay, good. And percentage-wise, what do you think? If we were talking for 2 minutes, how much of that do you think you were talking?
83%.
How much?
Probably about 93.
Yeah, that's not too specific. Thank you, Carol. No, you're right. You were doing most of the talking. You were doing most of the talking. Now, the interesting thing is, this is a very, very, very typical experience. Like, I've role played hundreds and hundreds of people. I got to tell you, everybody does the same thing. You get in there, you sit down, and you go, talk. Were you as comfortable as you are in your setting, treating a child or working with a parent?
Oh, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay, good. So we look at this one example, and we go, okay, if this is a bit of an actual scene, the ideal scene might be, I want to go have a meeting with the doctor, and I want that doctor eating out of my hand. I want that doctor to refer to me as a result of my interaction with them. And we go, okay, that's the wish list. That's the ideal scene. But the actual scene might be very different. Now, I'm not saying that you would do exactly what you did, and yes, you'd probably get more research done. I appreciate all of that. And yet, I go, I got to tell you, from doing this for 23 years, this is what people actually do. If you put me in a position where I'm a bit out of water, fish out of water, a little uncomfortable, I don't have as much experience, I don't do this every day, guess what? I'm going to default to the things that I do when I get in a jam. And I either clam up or I start yapping. I start talking. Talk. So we look at this and we go, oh my gosh, have you ever been on the receiving end of something like that? Have you ever gone into a store and the salesman starts talking to you?
Yeah.
Carol. I mean, for most people, they don't like it. They're like, I shut them out, Or have you ever had somebody come into your place of work trying to sell you something, trying to get you on the phone to sell you something? And for the most part, we reject it. We may not even know what it is, but we, mentally we reject it. So we go, oh my goodness, maybe there's another way to do this where it's easier. I feel better, so I'm more comfortable. I do it more naturally, and I actually get information from the potential referral source so that I can figure out what my next step is. Because heaven knows, we know that a lot of people do not know what we do. In other words, are they trained in therapy? Do they have experience? Or did they found out about it because they're, an ancillary part? I mean, they're part of this medical system that refers patients, or a case manager, whatever it is. They didn't go to school where you went. Their understanding is not, they didn't learn the same things in medical school as you guys did, right? So we go, oh my gosh, they don't know what we do. So the solution becomes, let's go tell them what we do. And we go, how's that working for you? Does that get you patients in droves? In some cases it will, but the actual percentages are very small. In other words, they have their own things to worry about. They have their own issues to deal with. Someone coming and sort of suggesting that they do X, Y, and Z, it's only effective a minority of the time. It's usually about 10 to 15%. So if I'm interacting with 10 people, maybe one or two of them actually send me more patients as a result, or it's a stepping stone to building a relationship. So I'm using this just as one example of what the actual scene versus the ideal scene. We could do this in role playing with a difficult staff member. I'm trying to get someone to help me do something, and I'll give you a response that might be very typical. How do you handle it? Handle me. And unfortunately, what we find is we can slip back into the same thing. We start talking too much, and we think what we're saying is good, it's articulate, it's correct, and yet it doesn't solve the problem. So we take a very different approach, and we go, no, let's change this around. Let's totally change this around and see if we can do something different. So we look at in terms of management, we go, okay, there's a management tool, which is the assignation of goals. What do we want to achieve? Goals are often represented in one way in a wish list. Here's what I'd like to have as the end result. Here's my ideal situation. It may be the result of all my hard work over many years. That's okay. But we look at that and we go, this is the dream I had when I started. I'm not there. I'm far away from that. My actual situation is very different. So we go, okay, well, let's look at that. Let's figure out what that is. And then let's see, what is that condition? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? In other words, are we making progress towards known goals, or do we feel like, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I feel like I'm hitting my head against something, and I'm getting bruised here. It doesn't feel good. So we want to figure out, look, do we need to adopt some sort of plan for the situation that we're in? And this is a lot. I'm trying to, do this in a really, really relatively abbreviated way. But in other words, my plan is my formula. If I'm in a condition, if my car just ran out of gas, I go, Ike's, and it's late at night. I go, there's only a few places available. I guess I have to speed up my approach to whatever's going to get me gas fastest. I may have to hail somebody. I may have to get an Uber or whatever it is. I may have to act faster to be able to do something, resolve my situation quickly. But whatever that is, it's somewhat of a formula. Any fixed or conventional method or approach. If we look at things and we go, I want to start my practice, I think I have to market. Great. How are we going to do that? I maybe try something. It's somewhat successful, but not as much as I would have hoped. I try something else, whatever it is. If I can latch on to something that does in fact work, I got to repeat that over and over again. I've talked to a lot of owners that over the years, they've dropped out something that was successful when they first began. And I go, what was that? What was the formula? What was your successful action? And they tell me what it was. And I go, when's the last time you tried to do that? Maybe it was interacting with referral sources. Maybe it was going out and talking to people that in fact did refer. Maybe it was a way that they carried themselves, an attitude, an operating, a cultural issue. How do we do things here? What do we bring to the table? It could be a lot of different things, but the point is it needs to be understood and articulated. So that gives you an idea of a tool of management. Certainly, we have to have goals. We have to know where we are. We have to have a plan. And it's got to follow some path that's not necessarily, we didn't just invent it out of thin air. It's actually something conventional, something we can follow that seems to make sense. Maybe it's been done by other practitioners. Maybe we've done it before in the past, and it helped our situation. Another component of management is the delineation, demarcation, division of labor. So when we look at something, we want to go, well, what are we doing? And logically, we see that it actually falls into different categories. And this is something called an org chart, organizing board. And a lot of companies have this. In corporate America, you'll see an org chart, or in the military, or in different kinds of facilities. Okay, who's in charge? And then where do things get done? There's logistics, there's mechanical things, there's marketing, so on and so forth. This is similar to that, a little different. It actually shows the sequence of production. And what I mean by that is, Carol, in your example, you go, look, I was doing this great work with hippotherapy, and I decided to go back and get my degree as an occupational therapist, and now I'm going to do two things that I'm passionate about and I love, and hopefully they're both going to be successful, and I'll carry them forward in a way or another. So we go, okay, well, that's you up here. Here's the big boss. You have an idea. And we go, the executive division is primarily planning, looking at something and going, I'm going to build a better mousetrap. I'm going back to school to get my degree because I want to combine my passion for this, something I'm already involved in, with a means of treatment that I think I can help people. And I can use that maybe as a stepping stone to even help more people. And I go, that's awesome. Mission statement, a purpose, whatever, that's in this division. We have to have then a plan that seems to make sense. And if you're looking at, Carol, I know you know this already, but if you go, well, I'm thinking about opening up in town in the next 6 months or whatever, I go, what's your budget? What is it? What's your operating budget for the next 6 months? At some point, you'll need to look at that. And some people do this, some people don't do this, but it is a part of planning. That's in Division 7. And if I have a good plan, now I have to execute it. Now I have to walk the walk. That's where a lot of us fall down. We have a good idea. We may even think of a plan. Maybe it's not written down. Maybe it is, but we don't necessarily execute on it well. So you hear this successful action of a lot of successful people is persistence. Is they didn't give up. They maybe, it was a hard time at different points or another, but they persisted. That's execution. That's getting something done as opposed to, going off onto another tangent or doing something different. So a lot of that's Division 7. Budgeting, money, finance, it's part of Division 7. I have to be able to figure it out one way or another, make it work so that I'm not constantly losing money at whatever this passion is that I'm involved in. Division 1, we call it communications, but it's personnel. It's the deciding on who's going to do what, taking the labor and going, we're going to break this out. And we're going to go, well, I have to make phone calls a part of the day, and then I have to treat my patients part of the day, and then I have to bill part of the day. And if you're a solo practitioner, you do everything until you can get some other people to help. But you know what I mean. There's a great example. Yes? I'm sorry. Alex, did you say something?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, sorry about that. I heard something and I was like, well, let me stop for a second. So there's a great example of Apple Computer. So as the story goes, two people got together, Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs, and they were working. They became computer nerds. They were in the same computer club together and got to be friends and decided they could work on some things, made a couple different types of components and so on and so forth. But when they got to building the prototypes for the Apple computer, it was done in Steve Jobs' parents' garage. So it was a physical plant, a physical place. So that's, we call estates. That's in Division 7. So having a place, whether you do it out of your living room or your car, or you have an office space and then you have 3 offices or whatever, that's estates. But immediately you run into who's going to do what. And in their case, Wozniak was, I'm going to stay in the garage. I'm going to tinker. I'm going to make the circuit boards. I'm going to make these things work. Steve Jobs is going to go out and see if he can introduce some people to an idea that they want to build a computer, maybe get some money, maybe go to a bank, try to get some loans. That wasn't so successful, but they ended up actually marketing. And marketing is Division 2. That's a close second, and we call it front desk operations, but it's anything that we're doing to get the phone to ring, whether that happens to be social media or these referral visits or word of mouth or whatever it happens to be, we go, hey, I got the phone rang. I got a patient to schedule. The front desk takes that, gets them scheduled, gets them in. We get the billing particulars done. Are they a cash patient? What's their insurance? We verify that. We go through that piece of it. And then clinical, it's where we're treating people. So everything that we're trained to do as therapists is in the clinical and quality control divisions. I got my degree. I'm doing discharge reviews. I'm treating patients. I'm doing good evaluations leading to good treatment plans. I'm executing on those treatment plans. I'm getting patients better in some way, shape, or form. There's whatever my guidelines are to achieve that goal. That's Division 4. Verifying that's Division 5. And then division 6 is now these people are leaving the clinic and they're going out there, and I want them to be walking billboards of my operation. Why? So that it leads back to here, which is expansion. I'm busier. I have more people demanding my services. Now I have to figure out maybe a different plan. I got to look at hiring. What's my budget for that? How can I do that? Then I go out and find good people, interview them, check their references, sit down, screen them, do my interview sequence that ends up getting a good person hired, and then I onboard them. Then they're dispatched to, if it's a clinical staff, they go to division 4. If it's, I just hired my second front desk person, great. Now they're apportioned over to division 2. So you see the idea here. It's just a bit of a sequence of logic that goes every step of the way. There's a sequence from left to right. And although I'm not showing it here, from top to bottom. So each one of these is filled out and it shows you more specifically what actually gets done. When we look at these things, we call them hats. We go, look, you're the executive director. That's a certain hat. And people generally know that. Look, we know there's Carol, I was asking you to put on your marketing hat for a second and go, here's how I would talk to a potential referral source. And you may go, well, yeah, I would like to do better at that. That's fine. So we know that issues with hats are, we may not have a complete hat. Like a hat would be, here's the job, here's the job description, here's the duty, here are some of the steps that we know should be taken in that particular hat. Like you're hatted as a therapist. You're hatted, you're the executive director over at the writing center. I go, okay, you probably have a fair amount of experience from being there that long of like what needs to be done in that nonprofit and how it all works. Somebody at the front desk, if you had to schedule patients, it might be a little more challenging. Maybe somebody wants an appointment that's already filled. Maybe somebody doesn't have that copay or deductible amount that they need to pay you right now. So hats are very, very important. Now, it's another component of management. So if we have this assignation of what are people supposed to be doing, and here's the big picture, we go, within each one of these areas, there's at least one hat. Usually there's more than one hat. So we go, I got to know what those are. If I don't know what those are, I got to find out what they are. Ideally, in an organization, those things are written down. So I have policy. I have a how-to manual. This is a marketing for, dummies. It's understandable. I can read that, understand it. I can go try some of those things out, and it seems to help. It's my manual. Now, as an example, here's a little drill, and you guys do this silently. I want you to think about and look at all the different hats that you wear. You may do some marketing, you may do some treatment, you may do some issues on billing and collection. You may go to events, do some public relations. You may do a lot of things. You may be managing other people. Now prioritize those hats. What makes the number one hat the most important? And Alex, I'll ask you this. Of the things that you do, what is it that makes a priority for you? What's the number one hat that you think is most important?
Wow, that's pretty, wow. Let me think about that. I think. Well,
I mean, I know you're treating. I know that's a big part of what you do.
No, that's a really
but
good
you're
question.
also an entrepreneur.
Okay, so I'm going to answer it by saying, who's going to pay me for it? And I mean that not in just a purely capitalistic sense, but without reimbursement, I can't continue to do the good work that I want to do. And so I oftentimes try to work backwards and figure out, I think it's the greatest thing since sliced cheese, but do other people like cheese? And so that is usually a driving factor for me, because people love freebies, they love free information, but if I can't be reimbursed, I can't continue to do what I'm truly passionate about.
I 100% agree. I really do. And it's not to say that you might not have started in a different way of like, oh, I want to do this. I'm passionate about this. Let me try this out. And there's no reimbursement. You're trying it out. People are guinea pigs. You're just talking about things and trying things. But the idea is, you're right. Whatever I'm doing, the plan behind that has to end up being somewhat viable. In other words, in dollars and cents, if we look at capitalism and we go, it's supposed to show a profit. In other words, whatever the activity is that I'm involved in, and this, of course, is excusing, Carol, the nonprofit. I understand the difference there, but we look at most private businesses and we go, well, I have to have enough to cover my expenses, and I have to have something left over. Why? Cataclysm, problems with reimbursement, unexpected issues. Somebody gets ill. One of my clinicians can't treat. I have an accident, something. In other words, I have to have an excess to be able to just survive everyday living. So, but, capitalism really is the idea of, okay, we're going to work and we're going to generate profit. And that means I'm paying myself, whatever it is, in the life of your business. It has to get to the point where, okay, well, we're paying you about what you'd be worth in this geographical area, in this economic climate, with your skills and your duties. And we can figure out what that is. We can. So, but that's an expense. You wouldn't work for me for free. If I bought your operation tomorrow, if you're not paying yourself an equitable salary, that shows up. Somebody that can read books intelligently can see that, and they go, "Wait a second, your expenses are higher than I'm showing here. Why? Because you're not taking yourself. You're not taking as much as you should be taking." So I have to do something, like Alex said. It's got to be exchanging. It's got to be paying the bills. It's got to remunerate me for the amount of effort. And you also, Alex, you mentioned something. You say, I might think it's great, but do other people think it's great? Do other people think my idea is great? So this is a plug for surveys. Surveys are, what are we doing that can help us be in a better position to decide? And there's a great definition of the word ability, and it's a 3-part definition. It's observe, decide, and act. And literally, so surveys are observing. If I ask questions, if I go to a doctor's office and ask a bunch of questions, I'm observing. And then I can decide what to do, and then I can act more intelligently. If I go into a doctor's office and I talk, I'm doing the third thing first. I'm acting. Like I'm going through the motions. I'm, reacting. It's quiet. There's a uncomfortable silence, so I fill it with words. I'm acting. I didn't observe. Observing would be asking questions, getting to know them, trying to just maybe warm it up. It may be a lost cause, but I'm still trying to do that. Or if I'm trying to decide, should I open up in town? I want to do some observation first. I want to do some surveys. Those could be literally me asking potential or existing referral sources if there's a need. If they were me, where would they potentially open? It could be in talking to parent support groups if I'm doing pediatric or daycares or schools or administrators. It depends on what I'm trying to accomplish. But my point is, surveys will help me figure out a viable path. So that's just a little bit about that. Now, if I have a hat, and maybe my hat is the executive director, the dreamer, the founder, I have to devise good things that people will be interested in, then I got to figure out a plan that will make this thing viable quickly. I have to monitor that objectively, and we do that with stats, statistics. And stats are, it's simple. It's just a number amount compared to an earlier number amount of the same thing. So if we put this on a line graph over time and we go, let's look at this weekly. What am I doing? Here's my revenue each and every week. It's a declining statistic. We go, oh, that's not so good. How long can I last in this direction? The opposite, it's a rising statistic. But my point is, it's a visual aid. Everybody has numbers that they look at. Maybe you have an accountant that provides you with good statements and that sort of thing. That's fantastic. For a lot of owners, they look at them and they understand a portion of them. They're not really well versed. I know, from feedback I've gotten from accountants that I've worked with on their practices, growing their practices, I ask them, I go, how many people understand financial statements and reports that you generate? And one for one, they kind of chuck. They're like, like, like everybody knows that, how much do they understand? Well, they're not necessarily educated in that. So it's useful, but it's not as useful as maybe it could be. Well, the idea behind having a statistic or a visual aid like a line graph is, okay, it shows me it's going in the right direction. Now, it would help even more if I had some line across, a horizontal line across there that showed me this is my bottom line. This is what I have to produce each and every month at my level right now just to keep the doors open and expand a little bit. That's where budgeting comes in. And that's very important. It's another tool of management. So each area of this organizing board, we look at and we go, is it helping? Is it helping create profit, more money than I am expending? Or is it a loss? And what do I mean by that? Well, as an example, the front desk. People tell me that there are issues sometimes with patient compliance. We got somebody scheduled, they didn't show up. That's a front desk operation. Maybe the clinic is doing that. Maybe the therapists are scheduling those people. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's scheduling is part of Division 2. So whoever does it, we can show objectively, well, look, when Alex does this, this is what his percentage of arrivals are. He scheduled 10 people, 9 of them showed up, 90%. That's an objective measure. Maybe somebody else comes along. Tammy's now doing the front desk, and she's very nice, very pleasant, but she never gets above 80% or 70%. And I go, if I'm comparing these things, apples to apples, I want to be able to improve them. So I got to find out what's Alex doing that seems to make this more valuable. Is it just that he's also a clinician, or is there some way he's getting the patient's agreement that they actually show up? Because in essence, you're kind of a traffic cop. You're kind of going, hey, oh yes, you guys come on in here. Oh no, go over here. Oh no, red light. Here, stop. Good, no, et cetera, et cetera. You want to direct the traffic. So when the phone rings, my end result is I got that person scheduled. That should be the aim or the purpose or the intention at the front desk. In Division 4, it's a different thing. I'm not a clinician. I wouldn't know, what constitutes good treatment. That's not my background. But for you guys, I would expect a well-done evaluation, good treatment plan that's now being executed, and, the patient's making progress. You can see it, they can see it. It's both subjective and objective. And you could look at that in each area, go, is this area, is it helping? Is it adding to my bottom line? And here's a little bit just to break it down. Now, I'm not a CPA, but a CPA helped me create this. So we look at this, we go, as an example, this happens to be a PT clinic. We could say the same for a speech clinic or OT. 4 ways to grow your practice profits. Current scene. So this is what we're producing right now. We're seeing 300 visits. The average collection is $200. I don't know what that is, percentage. I forget what it is. But okay, cost to deliver. That's $85 per visit treatment. So I'm collecting 200. It's costing me 85. Weekly, my net is 27,000, and after my expenses are 25,500. So I'm not really doing that great. I am profitable. I'm making $1,500 a week. That's my profit. So we look at this. We just say, okay, that it may be indicative of some offices out there. So that's average collection, by the way, 45%. So I'm billing 200 and I'm getting, whatever it is. So if we look at each one area, now there's different ways to grow your profits. And this is just an example. Increase patient visits, increase the average amount of money billed, decrease write-offs, and decrease operating expenses. Now let's go and just see what happens. So if some way or another I'm able to increase my visits from 300 to 325, this is what happens. Everything else is staying a little bit the same. You see my cost to deliver goes down a little bit. Why? My fixed expenses are being shared by more visits. So my cost to deliver each particular visit actually goes down. I'm collecting more because I'm billing more. I'm seeing more people. My expenses haven't changed that much. Maybe I've got more efficient people doing this work. So now I'm not saying this is possible all the time, but I'm just saying in this scenario, we're saying, hey, my weekly expenses didn't really change that much. We just got more done in that unit of time, that week. What happens by the end of the week? I generate $3,750 compared to $1,500. Holy smokes, the improvement in 1 week is $2,250. Over a year, it's $117. That's just working on one issue successfully. Now, in scene 2, what I did was I created a situation where I'm actually collecting more. That's a collectible charge. My average collectible charge went up from $200 a visit to $212. So how did I do that? There's a couple different ways, but the point is I did it. Now, when we look at cost to deliver didn't really change. My average percentage didn't change. I'm still collecting the same percentage. My net goes up, what my revenue is for that particular week. My expenses are keeping solid. And in this scenario, I'm collecting more, $3,120, than I was in that first example of $1,500. The improvement over the first scenario, the current scene, was $1,620, and annually it was $84,000 in improvement. These are huge changes. In situation 3, this is my average percentage of collection. So I'm collecting a little more of what I bill. How? I'll show you that on a different screen. But the point is, you look at these, all other things being equal, I'm making improvements. In this case, it's $3,300. That's $1,800 better than I was doing in that first scenario. In the next scenario, my expenses, somehow or another, everything else is the same, but I was able to cut my expenses. I cut somebody's hours, or I did something to cut expenses. Here, I'm generating $2,500 compared to $1,500, so I'm getting $1,000 more. But if you notice, this is also the smallest of these different things. A lot of people focus on how can I reduce my expenses, and I go, okay, that's fine. It's not going to be your biggest area of improvement or potential improvement. Scene 5, this is where everything that we've looked at earlier is going my way. In other words, I've increased the numbers of patients, the amount that I'm collecting, the percentage that I'm collecting. My cost to deliver continues to go down. I'm getting more each week. I've even decreased some of my expenses, and holy smokes, now I'm making $8,500 a week, an improvement of $7,000 or $367,000 for a year. Okay, that's probably never going to happen. Now, a profit plan would be, is there incremental improvement that I could make on some of the issues that I can control? I'm not worried about the things that are out of my control. Those are not going to help me right now. I'm going to focus on the things that I can control. I make some incremental changes, and lo and behold, at the end of the day, I'm making $6,000 where I was doing $1,500 a week. The improvement's $4,600, and it's almost $250,000 a year. Now, this is actually, it's something that is obtainable. How? Well, if we look at patient visits, we go, things that you have to control, referral development. And that's internal is word of mouth. How is there a way that I can help that continue and expand? External is who are potential or existing referral sources. Can I actually develop a good professional, not a sales relationship, but an actual professional referral relationship outside of the office? Patient commitment to full care. And in other words, some people drop out or leave as soon as their coverage is expired. Their insurance only covers this much. This is as much as they're going to see. Is there a way to improve some of that? Is there a way to improve some public relations and marketing, getting our word out there, more well known? And can I sell more people more stuff? That's marketing. That's the essence of marketing. Staff productivity. Can I set a minimum level of productivity per therapist? Is it too low? Is it too high? Is there something in between there? Can I make that a goal and get people to buy in? Are there capitated contracts I can participate in? Can I decrease dropout? These are some things. We've seen some people make improvements in those areas, and that makes a difference. Increase average bill. Factors you got to watch. What are your charges? I got to keep track of time. Patients there, I'm seeing them. I got to be billing for that time. I want to make sure I'm billing for the correct modalities. This is not anything fictitious or false. No, I got to be able to figure out what am I actually getting paid for. Good. I got to bill for those things and do those things. Make those things part of my treatment plans whenever possible. Collect copays and deductibles instantly. I have to code. I got to stay on top of that. Insurance companies are constantly changing the rules of the game. I got to stay on top of it if I want to be in control. Cash pay programs, product sales. Some of that can happen in different situations. No equipment or supplies walking. You know, people just sort of, oh no, that's free. Don't worry about that. Raise my rates as needed. This is very important. Every once in a while, I got to look at things and go, uh-oh, I got to bump things up. Insurance negotiations. These are possible. I might make only incremental improvements. I may make none, but it's worth the effort. That's for sure. I got to be able to evaluate insurance contracts. What's my income per visit? What's my cost per visit? Both overall and with individual companies, individual plans within those companies. I got to isolate the losers. I either negotiate or terminate. I have to do something where I build Class A referrals through referrals. So Class A referrals send me good patients. They got good insurance. They're very willing. They participate. They stay in care. They follow my directions. It works out. This is great. Those have to be in somewhat of a priority of the folks that I'm marketing to, so that I can keep my doors open and offer, if I want, charity cases or different kinds of things for free. Example of a flow line, establishment. So this is just a sequence of actions that make sense. So I'm hiring good people. They're trained. They know what they're doing. We've discussed and negotiated their pay. Promotional actions. We've designed promotional pieces. They're mailed out, they're sent out, they're emailed out, they're on our website, whatever the case may be. Referral sources are developed. We want to do events. Why? I want to get my face in front of more people, either me or somebody that's appropriate in the practice. Patients respond and are handled by the front desk. Front desk is very, very good at doing things and being that traffic cop, as I said. Scheduling and payment terms are discussed and agreed upon before we get into a course of treatment. Delivery of the care in the clinic, productivity of the staff, proper coding, use of assistants when it's possible, cash-based programs, care taken with billing for all the services we're delivering, excellent reporting, not too much, not too little, great physician relations, quality assurance, corrections of patients and staff, callbacks. Do we do that? Do we call people back after a month or 6 weeks? What's happening there? I want to make the most out of the fact that somebody who came into my care at one point or another, and I want to stay in touch with them. So I put them on the mailing list, I get them the newsletter, et cetera, et cetera. Finance, billing and collections, insurance negotiations and adjustments. The cycle repeats with patients referring friends and family. That's your word of mouth, your internal referral. Decrease write-offs. Remember, there's 4 places we were talking about. Factors you got to control. Billing instantly and precisely. Police collections. Watch benchmarks. Am I getting the amount of money per visit versus the cost per visit? Adjust the mix, negotiate. I got to be willing to fire. I got to walk away from contracts that are losing me money. I'm a small business. I got to be smart about this. Decrease operational costs. Financial planning and expense control. I got to have a way of being able to purchase things that make sense, that's controllable. That's expense control. Production-based pay plans. As much as possible, I want to enhance people's pay. I want them to make more money proportionate to their value to the practice. How can I do that? There's ways to do that. Hire people who will produce. We know there's classifications of people. We want to get the people that are willing. They're going to go in there and fight for us. They may not have all the training we want or expect, but I'll take their willingness above that any day. Bonusing to improve productivity. It's not just awarding people money, but we are interested. Payroll is the biggie. Maximum benchmarks, 35% for delivery staff, 50% for total payroll. I may not be able to make that. I may be paying 60 or 70%, but I'm going for it. That's my goal. This is my ideal scene. So again, this relates to what are some of the functions in each one of these areas. But I'm taking a statistic like what's the amount of revenue that I'm going to get? How do I proportion that? How can I generate more? And each one of these areas are going to contribute to that in one way or another. This is an organizing chart filled out. So as you can see, there's a lot more on here. It could get even bigger than this, but it specifies Oh, over here for the boss, it's my goals. What are my goals? My policy? How do things run? My plan. It's got to make sense legally. Got to make sense from a financial perspective. I have to deal with public relations. People have to know about me. I got to work on that. And then I have to make sure things get done. I got to oversee the production, and that's the execution of all these different areas. My executive council is myself up here, my boss, the executive director. If I'm an owner, I'm on the board. I may have a couple other board members just for taxes and guidelines. But my executive council is the boss, the executive director, the office manager, clinic manager, marketing manager. I may not be big enough to have those three, but I'm just showing you division of labor. Three major areas, and they're guided by one person. It's not a committee, it's an individual. So there's a lot to this. I am going to be sending you guys a handout, and obviously I've taken more than an hour. We were kind of talking about we'd be on for an hour, but Carol, is any of this helpful for you?
Oh, I think it's always helpful to just like sit down long enough. I'm more the visionary, you know. I like to delegate because dotting the I's and crossing the T's is not, I get bogged down in that kind of stuff, and it's just not fun for me.
Yes,
so
I understand.
that's my stuff I like to delegate, you know, whereas being a therapist, I get to be creative and that kind of stuff. And while I've done a lot of this stuff for the nonprofit, I have to say I've not done a lot of these steps with the practice because maybe because I'm so new as a therapist, I just haven't quite convinced myself that it really can be bigger and whatever. So a lot of it's just a good reminder. Even though my practice is for profit and the Writing Academy, I mean, there's still the mechanics of running a business are still the same.
True. Very true.
So, but yeah, the payroll benchmarks was incredibly helpful because in the nonprofit world, we definitely don't get to pay what a lot of people are worth when you're first starting out.
Yes.
And when I get into the point to where I'm able to hire somebody, I do want to make sure that that's a fair and equitable wage and you know, what kinds of things can I do to make it, like you say, to have the edge on, you know, whether it's, you know, a better work environment or it's whatever. I just want to be a good employer, I guess, as well as a good therapist, but you just have to do both. So.
Good. Fantastic. Well, if I can be of any assistance to you, I will email everybody that's attended today. I will send you guys a handout, and it's chunky. There's a lot to it. It's an ebook, but it's one section, and it's called Executive Skills. And you take a look at it, see if some of it can be applied, or you can digest some of that. And I think it should help as a follow-up to just some of the issues that we were talking about here today. Alex, has any of this been helpful for you?
That's a lot of information to digest, I must admit. It was very good info, and I appreciate it. I think I'm going to have to rewatch the video to to really process some of this stuff. It was very good. Thank you.
Well, no. Thanks for having me. Thanks for hosting me. As you guys may know, Alex is very involved in creating a resource for owners and entrepreneurial, and specifically with the AOTA, of which this will be posted, and people can watch it at their own leisure. But thanks for having me. If we do this again, I'll make sure we do it on a system where we have more people being able to be interactive, because unfortunately, for some reason, it wouldn't allow me to unmute the other guys. I tried, but it didn't show up as well as I would have hoped. So I did do a lot of talking, a lot of things to cover, but if we can get one or two nuggets out of this, that would be really, really fantastic. If you guys would like to reach me or check out Survival Strategies, there's our contact email, contact@survivalstrategies.com. my number, 818-276-1000, extension 224, and then the website is just Survival Strategies. But again, thanks so much for having me, and we'll wrap up the recording so that other folks can watch this at their own leisure.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, guys, for attending. I know, again, some of you guys are not able to speak, but thanks for attending, and that concludes our webinar.